So, I've just finished watching the 5th episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and now it is time to review it. So, join me, Lucas Prime, and my best friend, Ranscisis, as we review the episode together. So, yeah. Anyway, cue the intro.
Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, join it or something.
Alright guys, so as always going to Alexander share his thoughts on today's episode first, so yeah, I'm going to let him share his thoughts, and yeah, now, if you're ready guys, please consider subscribing to his YouTube channel, so I'll link below the description, so please go subscribe to him, he's got a great channel, so yeah. Anyway, take it away, Oppo.
Hello there, this is Lucas Prime. No, it's not, it's Oppo Ranscisis. But why did I say this? There's actually a very good reason, because I want to show, on this example, what this show is doing to Boba Fett with this episode. Much like if I suddenly disgracefully said that I'm Lucas Prime, or suddenly took over Lucas' channel, or did something strange and crazy and insane like that. That's what they did here. They had the Mandalorian pretty much take over Boba Fett's show for a whole episode, and Boba Fett didn't even appear. And Fennec Shan, who's the second main character, as Luke pointed out, only appears later on, towards the very end, as if it was just a scene that was filmed and added on later on. This really didn't feel like a part of the show. And in fact, I know that Boba Fett, obviously, Book of Boba Fett is a sequel to The Mandalorian, so you do have to watch it, but it should be able to act as a standalone, and this episode definitely wouldn't act as a standalone to someone starting off with this show. And also, I want to point out that I'm not going to be here for long because I got to do a lot of stuff, but I'm going to film this review. I'm actually refilming this because my last review, I was like, maybe it feels like I'm putting my opinion a little too out there. Maybe it doesn't feel like I accept, like it's as respectful as I want it to sound, you know, because I do love the fans who enjoyed this episode. I'm very happy for you, you know, the fans who loved this episode as much as they did, but at the same time, I personally don't understand it, and I feel this episode was a bit boring and a little dragged out. I think it could have been like a Clone Wars style 20-30 minute episode, but it wasn't. But I did enjoy, you know, at the very start we had this butcher thing, and that reminded me a lot of seafood/fish markets in China that I've been to in Guangzhou. Especially those rubber curtains and the blue lighting really remind me of some stuff from there, you know, give me some of those vibes. I really like how they recreated the pod racing location, because that looked exactly like the Phantom Menace, and trust me, I know the Phantom Menace, and that's exactly what it looked like. And is that it? Is that the main points I wanted to cover? Yeah. But Mandalorian, especially building his ship, took very long. I think that could have been trimmed down, and I think him flying could have been extended if they did want to have that extra runtime. But I do want to say that Mandalorian, you know, there should be some kind of formula to every show, you know, like, you can't just go away for an episode somewhere completely and then return back. That just, you know, that makes the show feel kind of a little rough and kind of like a trembly road, whereas I want everything to go smoothly. Like, there should be some kind of pattern to every show, so where it doesn't go completely off the rails, you know, director should be able to stay there. And also, lastly, I did want to point out the scene where too much happened. Most of the episode, too little happened, too much time was spent, but the scene where too much happened and too little time was spent was the duel scene, because at first we have Mando practicing, and I'm thinking, aha, this is where we're going. We're gonna have more practice sessions. We're gonna explore Mando's character. But then suddenly Paz Vizsla appears, and we're exploring his character, and we have duel between them. But before that duel can be really resolved, and I understand what's happening, suddenly the question gets asked about the helmet. He answers the question, you're no longer a Mandalorian, and we have the next quest. And that felt kind of jumpy, you know, also. But overall, it was a decent episode. It just wasn't entirely what I was expecting. But I hope we get back on track later on. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lucas, for letting me do the review. And I'm going to go now. Thank you. See you all.
Alright, so it's my turn to the episode. So yeah, now, this episode, in my opinion, was very, very interesting, guys, because this one was very, very different to the previous 4 episodes, much different, mainly because the main character, Boba Fett, does not appear at all. So, yeah, it's interesting that we went in that direction, but in my opinion, they did it quite well because they bring back a character, guys, and it was pretty nice to see, and it was none other than Din Djarin himself, a Mandalorian. So, yeah. He appeared in the episode as a main character, guys, which was pretty cool to see him as like a continuation of what happened after Mandalorian Series 2. So, yeah. And so it begins with him in a city in space, which was called, if I remember correctly, I think it was called Galavis. I think it's called Galavis. It's like a big, space city. Yeah, Galavis, yeah. And he goes to a meatpacking plant, Butcher's, where he's there to collect a bounty on someone called, I think it's called Cabba Bays. So, yeah. And after a conversation, we then get, a fight scene. And, yeah, it was pretty good, in my opinion, choreographed. And we got some pretty nice shots of Din using the darksaber, which was pretty nice to see him in action with it. Although in the conversation, he does get injured and he has to kill the bounty as well. So, yeah. He even says, I can bring you in hot or cold, and he has to bring you in cold because he had to kill him, so yeah. But he got injured on his leg, though. After this, he then returns to the Mandalorian's hideout after giving some earnings, which is like a bounty to like some people at a table. And he goes to the Mandalorian's hideout where we see returning Mandalorians from Series 1, which is pretty cool. We saw... was it who returned? Was it... We saw Paz Vizsla, which was pretty nice to see him return. And we also saw the return as well of who was it? Amy Swallow as the armourer herself, which was pretty nice to see. She returned, and yeah, and pretty nice to see her return. I was happy about that. And then after this, we then get a conversation where Paz, who is a fellow Mandalorian, he duels Din Djarin for the darksaber, and the armor even tells us Din all about the destruction of Mandalore, and we got some flashback scenes, and we saw many vehicles like flying vehicles and whatever. We even saw probe droids as well, guys, which is nice to see with a good pleasure. Did like how we saw that. It was pretty cool, and yeah, so Paz duels Din Djarin for the darksaber, but he's defeated by Din. However, after this, it's Din and then decides to leave the Tatooine because the Mandalorian discovered he removed his helmet, which was against the creed. So yeah, he's no longer Mandalorian, and the only way he can atone is by going to Mandalore, even though it's been destroyed. So yeah, so he goes to Mos Eisley, guys, and yeah, we got a scene where he's traveling on like a commercial ship, and yeah, ran me a lot of going on a typical plane flight, So yeah. And he visits a returning character, which is a Mandalorian show, which is Peli Motto, which is pretty cool. So Amy said I was returned as Peli Motto. And yeah, we did see her appear in a cameo appearance in episode 3, guys, of the Book of Boba Fett, which was pretty nice to see. So yeah, it was nice to see her returning again in this episode in like a much bigger role. And what's cool, we even saw several droids she has. So we saw some Pit droids and also an R5 astromech droid. I think it might be the same one from A New Hope, maybe, I don't know. And we even saw a BD unit, guys, which is really awesome. So if you guys play Jedi Fallen Order, you'll be able to Cal Kestis' droid. It's called BD1. This was like a very similar droid. I'm not sure if it's the same one or not, but yeah, exactly the same model. So yeah, it was nice to see. And Din asks her if she's got a replacement for a Razor Crest, because it of course got destroyed by Moff Gideon and his fleet in Mandalorian Series 2. When he was aboard Fennec. And she reveals that she got a replacement, which is actually, guys, an M1 Starfighter, which is actually really nice to see, guilty pleasure. I'm very happy. I was happy about that, yeah, as like a connection to prequels, because those are ships which people on Naboo were flying in the Phantom Menace in the battle over Naboo, which was really nice to see. And they also appeared in Attack of the Clones at the start as well, which was pretty awesome. So it was nice to see it come back, even though it's pretty damaged a little bit. So yeah, and so if they fix and modify it, and then Din takes it on a test flight, and he flies pretty close to the commercial ship which he was on before, and we even see like he encounters like a Rodian family on his flight to Mos Eisley, and he sees them again, and the child of the family notices him. unfortunately, it attracts the attention of the New Republic fleet, and we get 2 X-Wings. And what's cool is one of the pilots, guys, was actually was Carson Tether. So yeah, you know, that pilot who we saw in Mandalorian Series 2, who talked to Cara Dune. So it was nice to see him return and in that scene, yeah. And he did recognise Din's voice at first, until Din said, "I think you've got the wrong one." So yeah, and so it was nice to see him make a brief return as like another connection to a Mandalorian show, yeah. And then after this, he then returns back to Mos Eisley, where it's revealed that Fennec has arrived, as suggested by the end of episode 4, where she was told by Boba Fett to go and find someone to hire reinforcements for the imminent war. And yeah, and she asks him to work with Boba Fett, and Din Djarin agrees to do so, working for him, but only after he visits someone. And I can guess, based on what he was implying, saying a little old friend, whatever it was, that he wants to visit Grogu. So yeah, now I'm not sure it's going to be in the next episode or not, or episode 7. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so it looks like we'll be seeing what happened to Grogu after Luke Skywalker took him to the Jedi Order. So yeah, it's implied we'll be seeing him, especially because he misses him, because on his flight to Mos Eisley, he was holding like a little doll that was made to look like Grogu. So yeah, it's making me think he's going to see Grogu, isn't he? Yeah, possibly. But yeah, and so I assume in the next episode he'll be teaming up with Boba Fett and Fennec, which will be pretty exciting to see them back in action again after Series 2 Mandalorian. So yeah, and when it comes to Din appearing in this episode, you know, I kind of expected it to be because, you know, because it's like a good way to connect this show to Mandalorian, because this show is a spin-off of Mandalorian, so it would make sense if this show had connections to Mandalorian, basically. And it definitely did by having Din appear in this episode. So yeah, the only nitpick I have of this episode is the absence of the title character Boba Fett, which was disappointing. Like, I was hoping he'd appear at the end. And yeah, this wouldn't be the first time that a show had decided to focus on another character rather than the main characters, because in a Bad Batch Series 1, they did a whole episode which was focusing on Hera Syndulla when she was younger and her family. And also, you know, Chopper, with a Bad Batch only appearing in very briefly. So, just like in this episode, one of the main characters, Fennec, only appears in one scene at the end. So, yeah. But yeah, I wish Boba Fett himself appeared, you know. I'd love to see him, you know, greet Din Djarin, you know, after they last saw each other. And hopefully they will do, of course, in the next episode. So we'll have to wait and see. But nonetheless, it was a good episode, guys. And yeah, I definitely enjoyed seeing it. It was nice to see Pedro Pascal return as Din Djarin. It was pretty good. And yeah, I've got a feeling this show might probably set up Series 3 of Mandalorian, but as you guys may know, I do not care about that show because I refuse to watch it after the way we treated Gina Carano. Oh, and yeah, and because I think Series 2 perfectly closed the series, and I'd prefer that Din just goes on his own adventures, you know, in like spin-offs, rather than a third season, to be honest. So yeah, but nevertheless, I did enjoy this one. It was really fun to watch, and yeah, so guys, this is me reviewing the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 5, Return of Mandalorian with Alexander. So yeah, thanks for being here, Alexander. It's been really fun to review with you. So yeah, so you know, drill guys, be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to comment what you guys thought of today's episode, if you saw what your thoughts are on it. Also, be sure to join Team Prime and subscribe for movies in the future. If you'd like to remember, you can press join me, piece as in the description. And may the force be with you always.